When a person starts feeling this amount of dis-ease, it gets unbearable after a while, doesn't it? It gets feeling horrible. So people start to do something to try to relieve their dis-ease. True? And we call all these depression and anxiety and panic attacks and psychosomatic, we call these internalizing disorders. They have lists and lists of them. There is one mental illness, folks. It's chronic mental stress. It's the only mental illness there is. I've never seen a human being have anything that they put in the DSM ICD-10 that wasn't from what they call psychiatric illness, that wasn't from chronic mental stress. So there's one solution too. But so what do people do? David was kind enough to share, and as many do. People go to alcohol, they go to drugs, they go to food. I did this one time, and I got to this point, and the lady weighed 455 pounds. And when I got here, she started sobbing uncontrollably. And I gave the tissues to her, and I set a safe place away, and I just sat with her as much as a human being can when somebody else is going through something. Sat quietly, and finally she stopped after a number of minutes, 5 to 7 minutes, and she wiped her eyes and started breathing normal. And I said, Nancy, only if you feel comfortable, would you feel comfortable telling me what you just experienced? She said, absolutely. She said, I had just had the most beautiful experience I've ever had in my entire life. I was surprised. I said, what was that? She said, when you did this, when you talked about 12 to 14 hours a day and that we're all psychologically innocent, we're doing the best we can, but we are doing this to ourselves, and then we look for something to try to relieve it, I suddenly, when you went alcohol, drugs, food, I suddenly was overwhelmed with feelings of unconditional love and compassion for my alcoholic parents, whom I had been in judgment of my entire life. And I saw that we were just, all three of us, three beautiful human beings who innocently were creating 12 to 14 hours through stressful thinking, incredible levels of dis-ease. They went to alcohol to try to relieve some of their pain, and I went to food. Gambling, anger outbursts, assaultive behavior, isolation, OCD, interestingly enough, OCD rituals. Even the DSM-5 and the ICD-10 has moved it away from anxiety disorders because it's not an anxiety disorder. It's an attempt to relieve the anxiety. Does that make sense? I had a lady, one of the last days in the series, last days in the clinic, she came in and she used to have, I looked in my notes, she used to have up to 8 to 10 hours a day she had to do rituals. Over half of her waking hours. To try to relieve the anxiety that she was creating with her thinking and her worry. I said, I haven't even asked you about the rituals. She said it's probably less than 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes, doctor. We never talked about the rituals because the rituals were not the problem. Do you see that? They were the solution. The alcohol is not the problem. It causes problems, but it's not the problem. Nor are the drugs, nor is the food, nor is the gambling. It's not the problem. It's the solution a person has come up with to try to relieve some of their internal dis-ease and pain. Misuse of sex. I'm going to tell you that even mental illness, the things we call mental illnesses, are divine mind's attempt to keep the person alive. So let me, at the level of understanding that they're at, let me just see if this makes sense. Again, don't humor me. Chronic mental stress is the one mental illness. So with mood, there's a thing that people use in clinics now in the United States. It's called, and you can get it online for free. It's the It's the, remember the cross-cutting symptom profile, or symptom inventory, cross-cutting symptom inventory. There's 25 questions on it, and it covers 13 different areas. And Linda and I were teaching the course, and I woke up one morning and I said, honey, I see something. And she said, what did you see? And I said, well, you know those 13 things that have 25 questions, but there's 13? They're not disparate. They're connected. She said, what do you mean? I said, here's what I've seen. These are all things that are measured. The 13 things that are measured on this cross-cutting symptom thing are depression, irritability, disconnectedness, feeling isolated, disconnectedness. Does that sound familiar that I just shared earlier? Under tension, anxiety, including panic attacks and phobias, OCD rituals to try to do what? To deal with the anxiety. And if that fails, dissociation. People dissociate. They get so anxious that they literally have an hour or two twice a day or once a day or 3 times a week or twice a week where they literally miss hours of time. They'll say, my gosh, it's 3:30. I'm in a big hall. Last thing I remember, I was in Darlington. It was 11 o'clock this morning. I don't know where in the hell I am or how I got here. True story. True story. Because, and if you think about it, you say, how is that a good thing? In the summer, if you put on too much electrical appliances, what happens? Do you have it where the circuit breaker turns everything off? And if the circuit breaker could talk to me at that moment, he'd say, Bill, until you learn how to use electricity with a little common sense, you're not getting any electricity. So better start learning. Divine mind, when it takes people into dissociation, is saying, if you're spending 95% of your time that you're conscious of what you're doing, hurting yourself and creating biochemical dysregulation and even affecting epigenetics, your genes, the best I can do is turn you off for a couple of hours twice a day so you don't do as much damage. Does that make sense? I've even had people that slept. I've got a video that I won't get a chance to share. For 41 years, when she was depressed before she came to see me, she at times, her husband would say, would sleep. He was a lawyer. He stuck with her for 41 years. Incredible. She would sleep 20 hours a day. You say, how is divine mind working there? Well, because when she was awake, she spent 90% of the time in upsetting thinking. So the best divine mind could do was have her sleep 20 hours a day so she didn't do as much damage. Till she had an insight that she quit doing that for a little bit. So it gave her time to eat, get a shower, get cleaned up, say hello, and go back to sleep. So anxiety, OCD, dissociation, the body. These are all these are 9 of the things. Pain, somewhere in the body, you get pain, and then you get sleep disturbance, and then you get memory disturbance. These were things that were measured. These were the 9 things. There was 13 altogether. So these were the top 9. And what I saw was that these all created an incredible level of dis-ease. Absent the understanding of the principles, people created, kind of play on the word disease, they played dis-ease. Now, what happens? People go to some form of substance misuse. And under substance use really is any externalizing behavior. It could be gambling, it could be anger outbursts, it could be food, it could be, right? It could be misuse of sex. If that fails, people start having suicidal thoughts. And I tell people your suicidal thoughts are your friends. Why would your suicidal thoughts be your friends? Pardon me? A wake-up call. It's letting you know what you've been doing with this gift of thought. If it is natural that when you get caught up in giving attention to negative thinking, your mood goes down and your tension level goes up, your brain is a computer. And it's saying, Bill, have you noticed how bad you're feeling? Yeah. Have you seen any sign at all that it's going to get better? No. Then your computer says, I've got a solution. You can get out of the game. You don't have to suffer like this anymore. You have tried so hard. It hasn't worked, has it? No, it hasn't. Suicidal thoughts are the computer's way of saying, what you've been doing with your thinking is really hurting you. It's an alarm. You want to know when you're lost. When I was a Navy flight surgeon, one of the things they did to us, they put us in a centrifuge. And they spun us around with our heads covered. And then they de-accelerated to half the speed. And when you do that, it changes the flow in your brain to where we all thought we were going now the opposite direction. Are you with me? They took the hoods off, and you had this incredible experience of your eyes tell you you're going one way, and your body's telling you you're going the other way. You had to choose one. I chose my eyes because I trusted that more than what was, okay? Why am I saying that? Fast forward 18 months, I'm out on an aircraft carrier 100 miles off the coast of Charleston, North Carolina. As a flight surgeon, operational readiness, they're preparing to go to the North Sea, actually. And they they had timed this because they knew a big storm was coming. And they knew in the North Sea there would be a lot of storms. So they timed it so this big storm was coming up. And they sent all the jets off at about late afternoon. And the jets are all out, and the storm came in, and the waves, the wind got incredible. The waves were 25 to 35 feet high. Even this huge aircraft carrier is going like this. The moon goes, the stars go, there's no cover, and now these pilots are starting to have to land on this aircraft carrier with no visual reference. And many of them got vertigo, where they experienced that their plane was upside down. So what did they want to do if your plane's upside down? You want to turn it over. What would have happened? They would have crashed into and probably hit some of the planes that were parked, and it's happened. Massive explosions on aircraft carriers. All of the experienced pilots got down except one young lieutenant in I think an A6 Intruder. And he couldn't get down. He tried, and the third time he couldn't get down, they sent him off. They sent him off rather than if he failed the next time, he'd have to eject in a how many $1 million airplane into the ocean. So they sent him off to Charleston to land on a nice lighted flat airfield. The Navy guys say like the Air Force guys land on all the time, but that's just competition, right? So why do I say this? Because the reason that the older pilots that understood how things worked didn't get bothered, were able to overcome the vertigo feeling of being upside down is because of one thing. Anybody want to say what it was? They trusted the instruments. They looked at their instruments, and their instruments said, you are right side up. And even though their entire body told them they were upside down, they believed their instruments. And they landed the airplane. We have an infallible instrument system in our body. It's called our feeling level. And it will let you know when you have turned yourself upside down with your thinking. And it is true, it's just an experience, we're all going to go through them, but I think that you want to recognize when that feeling goes south sooner than later, before you crash. I used to not know I was there until I'd completely ruined a relationship, or I was physically on my back, quite sick with either an infection or a back that had gone out. So I'm fine with experiencing whatever we experience, but I think the deeper that you understand these principles and have insights into them, you get greater awareness, you catch quicker when you're headed for trouble. And you're able to allow your mind to quiet, and that default setting you get back on.